Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen are the pairs that we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video because I do have a bonus pair in store. But yeah, guys, I'll go through my trade for the week first on the NZD USD, then progress to the analysis shortly after. So if there is a particular pair you want to see, feel free to skip ahead using the timestamps below. I do want to apologize on the timing of the upload. I was quite busy this weekend, but happily still managed to get the video out to you guys, so I hope you still find it useful and give you some guidance for the week ahead. But yeah, I had one position this week on SDUSD, which was a loss. Price fell to hold the support level I was buying from. Had some really nice structure, had some good higher highs and higher lows. Price came back to retest some structure here on the left. Price was looking good, had a really good entry signal on the hourly time frame. Nice bullish engulfing. Price was looking good. Originally was kind of moving sideways on me, but momentum picked up. However, it didn't sustain. We came right back down, broke for the level, and then took me out for a loss as well. So price is looking quite bearish now for NZD, and I'm actually changing my bias on this one completely, but we'll go into a bit more detail onto this one shortly. But yeah, only one position this week. NZD was a loss. Again, I'm going to win some, lose some. As long as you're taking your trades for the right reasons, letting your edge play out, it's all good. But we'll move on to the next position, next pair, which is Euro USD, which is actually the first pair. But yeah, Euro USD. So we're seeing some retracement now, and that's kind of what we're looking for this week, because the market's been very, very bullish. Same thing for Pound USD and most other pairs as well, and Yen pairs, which we've seen recently. But Euro USD completely flew to the upside the past week, and we've been looking for some retracement. That's kind of what we got most of the week. The week was kind of just price kind of balancing out, sorting its feet out. Then eventually towards the end we start spilling over, and I think now we're going to see some nice retracement going into next week. So what I'm looking at for Euro USD, for me, is still very much buys. I'm still very much waiting for a bigger pullback and buys lower down. This is still my number one area. We have some really good confluence here, near enough 1.1. Yeah, 1.1, really good area here. So I'm still waiting to see if Euro USD can pull back into this level, see what we can do in that area of confluence, and possibly get some nice buys to the upside. However, I still can see some lower time frame sell opportunities, which is not really for me, but I understand a lot of people will be looking at some day trading and some trades on the lower time frames. And in the meantime, whilst we wait for this buyer position, it does look like there are some nice counter trend sells. If I drop to the hourly time frame, you can see the market was kind of consolidating most of the week. Then we start breaking structure, forming some lower lows and lower highs, and we can look to ride this momentum, look to anticipate the next lower high, and catch some sells back down to the area which I'm looking to buy from. Again, doesn't necessarily have to be that, that TP in mind. You could be looking to target these lows after a nice pullback. If you want to day trade it, scalp, it's up to you. But I do see some short-term sell opportunities, taking advantage of these counter trend. Of this counter trend structure. As you can see, these lower lows and lower highs, there's some good confluence here around 1.18, and possibly could be looking to short it back to 1.1, which is the level I'm looking to buy from. So for me, for Euro USD, I'm pretty much focusing on this 4H structure, this larger structure at play. So I'm kind of just waiting for that pullback into this level. However, I do see some also short opportunities that look pretty good on the lower time frames. A little bit aggressive because higher time frames are still quite bullish. Monthly, weekly, maybe not monthly, but weekly, daily, 4H, all kind of giving us bullish price action and still seeing a lot of bullish momentum. So I'm still definitely focused on the buys for my sake as a swing trader, but on the lower time frames, you can probably look to take advantage of some nice counter trend sells off the back of 1.118. So look for some retracement there early on next week. But for me, towards the end of next week, probably, let's see if we can get some nice bounces, nice rejection from 1.1, and then probably some buys back up to highs as well. Okay, so over to dollar yen. So dollar yen looking pretty bullish, and we were looking for this coming into the week. We came into a very nice area of confluence on the higher time frames, particularly the daily chart. As you can see, lovely resistance once, twice, and we're looking for it to act as support. We knew it had some good bullish structure at play as well. High, low, high, low. So looking at another low forming, possibly for push back to highs. If we scale to the weekly as well, you can see the overall trajectory is still to the upside. So we do have a lot of wind in the sails for the bulls, a lot of bullish price action, a lot of bullish structure in the higher time frames. So we're anticipating that higher low coming into action, which does look very, very good right now. So going into next week, all I'm looking at is pullbacks, and a couple of areas I'm looking at we've got this area here, this nice consolidation just before the big move to the upside, or we could probably come back a little bit deeper into the consolidation here as well at 139, and obviously the first level around 140,500. So personally, I'm just looking at pullbacks for dollar yen. Not too sure how far we will pull back, or if we will pull back. We're seeing a lot of momentum. We could just open up bullish and keep flying to the upside. Sometimes you could see some funky price action at the market open, and we could be opening Monday up around 143 potentially. So yen pairs kind of do mad things definitely of late, but hopefully we can see some retracement in this instance. So the direction for me definitely to the upside in terms of my bias. Only looking at buys, not interested in sells. There is a possibility for a big head and shoulder to possibly come into action, but the only way I'll look to trade that is if we snap through the neckline, start breaking some structure, then okay, I'll be interested in some sells. So that's the only way I'm looking for some sells for dollar yen, if we start breaking these lows, which at the moment is a big ask. It's definitely a possibility, but at the moment we're seeing a lot of bullish structure. We've got a lot of high time frame structure in the same direction too, and some good bullish momentum which has just played out towards the end of the week. So now going to next week, just looking at some pullbacks, couple areas of interest, 14500 and 139 as well, and targets depending how far you want to push. There are some minor levels you can look here on the left. Oh, did not mean to use that. Minor levels here on the left you can look to target, or you can look to be a little bit braver and probably target the highs there around 144,500. So that will be up to you if you're looking for the full swing, but definitely in terms of direction looking very bullish. And also had a look at some other yen pairs as well, and does look like we could be seeing another push for the yen pairs to the upside. They all look like they're starting to form some major higher lows, and if the yen shows some more weakness, which is a good probability to do so, it doesn't look like the yen pairs could be looking to get off on one again. But that is my analysis looking at dollar yen going into next week. Okay, so onto USD CAD. Dollar CAD was bearish coming into the week for this one, looking for a push back down to these lows and potentially further as well. A couple areas of interest to short from. Did see a nice reaction from this level here. Came in for a nice double top, 1 and 2. Big wick to the upside there, probably faking out some people on the lower time frames before giving us a nice move to the downside. However, didn't quite make the target there, and I'm starting to lose the bearish bias now for USD CAD, even though yes, we do have some nice bearish structure in the full H, but I have noticed some higher time frame price action, especially in the weekly, which is definitely making me change my mind, or at least starting to hold back and waiting for a bit more development. You have this major higher time frame trend line in the weekly chart, connecting that major low, these major lows here, and potentially another one here as well, testing some structure there on the left, which we discussed last week. And you can see on the weekly chart as well, if I move the trend line out of the way, we're getting a bunch of wicks into this area here, which is not a good sign for the bears. We did break some structure, break through some nice lows with some decent momentum a few weeks back, but we're failing to see this continue, especially with this big wick to the upside. You know, this big wick here would have taken out some lows on the lower time frame, taken out some highs on the lower time frame. So you would expect to see momentum continue in that direction. However, last week we saw a big wick to the downside, market pull back up, and again this week big wick to the downside, market pull back up. So from a weekly perspective, the market's really struggling to break through this area here, which obviously coincides with the trend line there as well, and possibly warming up for another higher low for another bullish swing. And again, we're kind of seeing that picture give us similar information on the daily chart as well, failing to break through support here too. Now we're starting to see some bullish engulfing candles and probably some higher lows too. So the sells do not look good anymore, considering the location and considering what the weekly is doing. And possibly there could be some nice buy opportunities if we can start breaking through some structure here, looking for some breaks and retest, and possibly if we are going to see a bigger swing from a weekly perspective, back to these highs here. I'm not too sure if I'll look to, if I do get into any buys for dollar CAD, I'm not too sure if I'll look to stretch the trade that far, because like I said, the current price action, the current trajectory is still down after breaking through successive, key lows, and obviously still printing lower highs. I don't really want to be trying to push the trade too far, but it is a reasonable target, and for risk to reward purposes it does look good as well. But I'll definitely be waiting for at least a break of 1.32299 to start looking or even considering buys. Underneath that, the market could still drop to the downside. Again, the trend line could break. It doesn't necessarily have to hold. We are seeing signs that it is holding, but it could still potentially break. So we have to do factor in the other scenario as well, which is the market continuing bearish. But above that area, see a nice breakout, a nice retest. We do have some higher time frame backing of the weekly as well. We could be looking at a nice intra-week move back up, or maybe even over a week, but a nice swing move here back to 1.33761. And if we do break the high there, then that's when I really start to expect USD CAD to really start opening up to the upside, and probably see some bigger swings, potentially for another big swing on the weekly chart as well if we do break through the high. But initially we're looking for the break of 1.32300, we'll call it, break and retest of that. And I can see some nice buys, at least back into some structure on the left. But if you're looking for the risk reward, 1.33761 looks pretty decent as well. So looking at some buys going to next week for dollar CAD. Okay, so over to Euro Pound. So Euro Pound has been very, very choppy, but it's finally managed to break out the consolidation. I have been complaining about this, saying consolidation is not really where I want to be looking to take my trades. The quality of the structure is poor, conditions are poor. I want to see momentum pick up and some breakouts, and it finally looks like we've got that. We've had some fake false breakouts previously up and down, but it looks like this time we've seen a true breakout. The momentum, the way the market is broken out, the distance is cleared it by, all looking very, very good in terms of probability. So I am looking at some upside for Euro Pound. However, the trend is still very much to the downside, and looking at the daily chart as well, I don't expect that up move to last for too long, because I'm looking for a lower high to shift and present itself around this area here. We've got really good confluence, a big old level of support, now flipped as resistance here just underneath 0.875, and obviously we do have these lower highs also connected by this trend line here too. So I'm looking to see if Euro Pound can get there, see what type of price action we can get. If it does look good, I'm looking for some sales and potentially another major lower high for a bigger move to the downside, a nice bearish lower high on the daily and a big swing to the downside. So with this bullish breakout on the 4H and the low time frames, buys do look good, but I think they are for the short term, because if price does get here and see some heavy rejection, I do think we're going to tumble back over, and long term probably take out these lows eventually. So going into next week for Euro Pound, already had one test, potentially could come back in to test the level again around 0.863. So if you do have another test, double bottom, could see a nice buy into that level, or even back to the highs here on the left. Don't necessarily need to push it back into that same level, depending on the risk reward, of course. But if you do get there, we see some heavy rejection, as looking like a very, very good play, especially with a high time frame confluence, looking for a big swing trade back down to these lows. Again, don't necessarily need to push it that far. You can take it step at a time, but from a swing perspective, that is where I'll be expecting the market to eventually head up. If we see the necessary rejection, we are looking for up at that level around 0.87200. So for me, Euro Pound sales look very, very good, but obviously we're looking at sales up there. Similar situation to Euro USD. You can probably take some nice short-term buys to get some sales later. Obviously for Euro USD, sales for some buys later on. But it's the same thing. We're looking for some short-term opportunities for some long opportunities later on. So keep an eye on 0.86300 for some more entries there for some longs. Take it back to the highs, potentially back into that area of confluence on the daily chart. And again, later in the week, we'll see what price gives us up there. If we do get there, then looking for a big sell-off back down to 0.85 later in the week. Okay, so next up we got Aodu USD. So coming to the week was bullish, looking for a push back to the highs. We had a lovely level of resistance here, as you can see, rejection 1, 2, 3. Had a couple fake outs above this high and above these lows here. We're looking for price to hold this level essentially and have another move back into that same resistance. However, we did not get that. We got a few rejections there. Price was looking good for half the week, and then we had a breakout, came back in, came back below. So overall, the market wasn't really showing much respect to that level. And from a higher time frame perspective, the bears do look good. We still do have this bearish structure, these lower lows and lower highs. And from looking at the structure and how things are playing out, it does look like partially we are starting to form another lower high in reference to all these highs. I know we haven't created new lows and pulled back, but it does look like the market is struggling to break through this higher time frame structure. We're not quite the trend line there either, but it does look like the market is starting to top out at this price around 0.68, 0.69, and possibly could be seeing a longer term move to the downside. So sales from the higher time frame do look interesting. I wouldn't say it's fully there yet. I'm still a little bit reaching, but the market is going to be taking out some of these lows here. Then yeah, sells off that do look very, very good. In the meantime, on the lower time frames, we're back underneath the same resistance as we can see. 1, 2, 3, fake out 1, fake out 2, back underneath as well. Big rejection down Thursday, big wick to the upside, market pull back underneath, close below, and again a bearish candle from that. So I'm now expecting us to complete the range again back down to these lows, or at least come back into this support level. And like I said, if you start breaking through these lows, breaking out to the downside, then that's when the higher time frames look very, very good for sells, and we're probably going to have that bigger swing back down to these lows eventually, but we're still away from that. So we're just going to be focusing on these intra-week sell opportunities. The market's back underneath a very key level, showing good rejection as well. So I'm looking for another lower high, retest the structure, and then progress back down to the low of the range, near enough 0.66. We do have another trend line coming through as well there, connecting these lower highs, 1, 2, possibly 3 on the retest of that 0.68 level. And from there, we'll be looking for entry confirmations, rejection, looking to get into the trade, and again targets back down there at 0.66. So for me, for AUSD on the higher time frames, it looks like we could slowly be looking at placing another major lower high, particularly in the weekly chart, which could give us that bigger sell opportunity, that bigger swing. But it's still a bit premature, and I'm reaching a little bit. But on the 4H and the daily, I do think we can see some good intra-week sells, at least back into the low of the range, and then we'll go from there. So AUSD, keep an eye on 0.668 for a retest for another lower high, and sells, at least back down into this level here. I'd say watch out for that. Could be a nice, final TP or just a TP to manage your trade. And then eventually I'm expecting 0.66 down there as well. So that's the plan going to next week for Aussie dollar. Okay, so over to NZD CAD. So coming to the week, we were bearish. Coming to the NZD CAD, we were kind of trading around that trend line area. If we draw the trend line in, as we can see, low high, low high, low high, low high, low high. So we'll come back into this area here, some nice resistance on the left too. So we said if we can hold this, I'm expecting the market to roll over to the downside. If we broke through the trend line, then it could be start of a bigger reversal. But as you can see in hindsight, we never did that. Big rejection. It happened really early in the week. Yeah, the market kind of gapped down and just kept falling from the market open. So very, very bearish from this area, 0.84. And since then, we've come to the lows, and we've actually broken through this low here as well. So for me, NZD CAD has a very, very high chance of coming back down to these lows, and possibly just continue this higher time frame trend on the weekly and the daily chart, possibly for a swing all the way back down to these lows here. Consistent lower highs, bullish momentum is not prevailing at all. As long as we continue this bearish structure, I would not be surprised if we end up back down at 0.76. So long term, could be seeing a lot more downside, but we'll keep it down to this low just for the analysis going into next week. So what I'm looking for is a pullback back to retest this area here, or retest this resistance here, because it does look like we've got a bit of a head and shoulders on our hands as well. So obviously we've got the left shoulder here, the head up there, possibly the right shoulder, retesting the left shoulder resistance, then possibly the sell off to the downside. So normally I do wait for the neckline to break, and I don't normally take it on the right shoulder. But this case, we do have a lot of probability, a lot of confluences with the higher time frames, with the 4H as well, how price action is set up. So the right shoulder to me does look like a quality trade. But if you want to be a little bit more, safer, maybe less risk reward but higher chance of the trade winning, obviously waiting for that neckline to break and then looking for your retest there. But for me, I'm keeping my eye on these two setups here, the break and retest of this low, as we can see those wicks. So if you come up, retest that area, looking for low high to short, or if we come up a little bit higher and retest the left shoulder resistance, then obviously that looks like a good place to short too, and targets back down there. Risk reward looks very, very good for these, for both of these setups. I'm not really too bothered which level we get to, but I like them both. And again, with the higher time frames looking good as well, there's a high probability of getting some winning trades here, and capitalizing on a nice bearish swing. So keep an eye on NZD CAD. I really do like the opportunity. Probably will be in the watch list for next week, so make sure you're on the Telegram to see what the watch list will be. But NZD CAD will probably make the cut. So keep an eye on some sells from 0.82 and also 0.825 for some sells back down into 0.83 for next week. Okay, so over to pound NZD. So pound NZD for me is just consolidating higher time frames. We do have a lot of bullish momentum, so I do favor buys naturally, because again, that's the trajectory. This is the weekly time frame, by the way. As you can see, higher highs, higher lows with those candlesticks. Daily as well, we're definitely running out momentum, and on the 4H you can see that consolidation and that kind of lack of bullish momentum kind of creeping in with the consolidation. So the market is tiring and consolidating, so I am bullish overall, because again, we haven't really broken any structure. We're still seeing higher highs and higher lows, but I'm not really looking for anything for pound NZD unless we see a really sharp break to the upside, something like this, really sharp breakout. Let's see some strong momentum back in again, then I'll keep an eye on the retest. But if it's kind of half-hearted, I'm not really looking to buy pound NZD. We're coming back into some very major highs on the left here as well, so looking to buy up here unless you're looking at intraday. But kind of swing, this is not really the areas where I'm looking to take my swing trades from. If I wanted to, I should be in the trade a little bit earlier, or at least trade the pound NZD earlier than now. So pound NZD buys in the breakout do look okay, depending how good the breakout is, around 2.08869. If you're looking to trade consolidation, trade range bound markets, then this is not a bad one to consider. Looking to sell from around 2.09 and buy from 2.05. Again, if that is your cup of tea, if that's your forte, this is not a bad market. Again, for me, I tend to stay away. But on the breakout, could be some nice buys, and obviously on the breakout as well, could be some nice sells, because this could be the start of possibly a bigger reversal. So there is a lot of mileage to the downside. We haven't retested this area here as well on the left. Nice resistance we broke through, never got the retest. If you do clear to the downside, 2.015 is not a bad target to keep in mind for some sells as well. So for me, similar to what I said with Euro Pound last week, until we break the high or break the low, I'm not really interested in this particular pair. Like I said, there are much better pairs that look that have better structure, better conditions, like we discussed with NZD CAD. I'd rather be looking to take trades on that setup and risk my capital there than in these markets. Not that they can't make money, it's just that this is just not my conditions to trade with. So pound NZD, keep an eye on the breaks of the high, the low, 2.09, 2.05 respectively. And if you're looking to trade within the range, then you've got the highs there too. But waiting for the breakout, and then we can look at some trades after that. Okay, so next up we've got CAD Yen. So CAD Yen looking very bullish, similar to Dollar Yen. Very, very similar actually. Both of them came to very nice daily areas of support. Both reacted quite aggressively, and obviously a bunch of wicks there to the downside. So last week we came into this week looking for the reaction to the upside, and eventually push back to the highs here, which we still haven't hit yet. So still in my books there's upside left for CAD Yen, and that is looking like a very nice level to target as well. Again, don't necessarily have to target for the trade. If you get a nice breaking retest of this level here, 106,500 is definitely an area of interest for CAD Yen. If you get some nice buys from there, again, a push to that resistance does make a lot of sense. Not trying to be too greedy, and again, if you're on the low time frames, you probably can get 1 to 2, 1 to 3 into that level, depending on the time frame of entry. So you don't necessarily have to push it all the way up to 109. But from a daily high time frame perspective, 109 does look pretty likely. And also a breaking retest of this level here, this could be a nice little area of interest too if the first one does not hold. So I do like both levels equally. Same thing for Dollar Yen. In fact, the setups are very, very similar. If you flick back to Dollar Yen, even the levels I'm discussing now are very, very similar to the price action. And again, they are both yen pairs. So if you do get into buys in CAD Yen, and buys into Dollar Yen, most likely those trades will either both fail or both work, because again, yen is kind of the driving force in these yen pairs here. So for CAD Yen, bullish bias. I won't be looking at sells at all unless we take out this low, which again, we're very far away from doing that. Unless we take out that low, then I'll consider looking for some sells. As long as we're above 105, which is that daily level, I'm looking for a push back to 109. So keep an eye on those two areas, 106,500 and also 105,800. And we're looking at buys back to the high, which is currently at 107,750, and then eventually 109 after that. Okay, so over to pound USD. So pound USD is coming to a very nice area of interest. I am still bullish on pound USD. Again, looking at the higher time frame, still seeing higher highs and higher lows, comfy bullish trend. And now we're approaching a very nice area of interest on the 4H time frame, which is definitely taking my fancy, as you can see, back into this resistance. Again, this is pretty much what I was talking about last week, pulling back into this area. And again, we've had a very impressive push to the downside off the back of CPI for pounds. So again, that really helped with the move to the downside and helped this retracement out. And now we're coming into that level near enough around 1.28, 250, we'll call it, as the area of confluence. So I'm looking for some entry signals in this area. At the moment, price is kind of slowly coming to the area, which is nice. We're kind of slowing down with that momentum midweek. Now I want to see some wicks, some rejection in this area, and if we can hold it, I'm looking at some longs if I can get a nice bullish engulfing candle on the hourly to show me momentum has picked up for the buys again. And then target wise, not too sure if I'll push it all the way back to the highs there, maybe back into this level here, which is where we had a really nice sharp breakout from. Again, if I can get 1 to 3 into that level, that's fantastic. No need to try and push it too far and leave myself exposed. If risk reward's not looking that great, then I might push it back to the highs anyway. But of course, that'll be my decision to make during the week, or if I do actually get a trade. So yeah, pound USD still definitely bullish, higher time frame still bullish, still seeing a lot of bullish momentum present in the market. Nice comfy retracement back into a good area of interest. So now we just need to see some development in that area telling us that okay, buyers are looking strong, sellers failing to break through this level. Let's see if we can get a nice momentum shift, and then yeah, we'll be looking for some entries. And then long term, we're looking at 1.315, but like I said, might want to be taking profit a little bit earlier than that if the risk reward allows it. So keep an eye on 1.28250 to 1.28500, that area, for some buys. And then if you see some good price action, we're looking for some entries and a swing back to the highs next week for pound USD. Okay, so over to pound CAD, we were looking for some downside this week, similar to pound USD. We were looking for that retracement. Pound CAD did come into a very key area of resistance on the weekly time frame, which we pointed out last week. As we can see here, big old level of weekly resistance, huge moves to the downside. As you can see, we just about came and tapped that area there as well. So we were looking for some retracement for pound CAD, because again, we were quite bullish. We did see quite a big move for pound CAD, so the price was a little bit overextended to the upside. So looking for that retracement for price to balance itself back out. Again, the news did help, but we did come from a very solid level of higher time frame resistance. So now I'm looking at buys, a couple areas I'm looking at buys from. I'm already seeing some nice rejection at this level here at 1.69. If we can hold that going into next week, buys do look good from here, and also this level down here as well. If we do break through the first level, I will be looking at buys from the second level here. Again, we do have some nice trend confluence down there as well, near enough 1.68250. So I am looking at buys from both these two levels. Again, pound CAD similar to pound USD in terms of the price action, still seeing higher highs and higher lows, as we can all see here. So I'm still looking at that next higher low. If you zoom out, look at the bigger picture. Again, this is if you just go to the daily time frame, a little bit easier. You can see the daily as well, giving us that overall trajectory to the upside. So my bias is definitely bullish. We're seeing that across multiple time frames. I'm just looking for the best area to buy it from. And these two levels look great. I just need to see if we can sustain this level going to next week. And if we don't, then I'll be looking at this level here slightly below it at 1.68250. But the bias is definitely bullish, and it will remain bullish until we break some significant structure, aka break through this low here. That's when I definitely will put a pause to my bullish bias and probably look for some sells to head lower, because if we break through that low, it's definitely a significant low, which I wouldn't want to be buying anymore from. And again, you don't necessarily need to target the high up there. This is still a very sufficient target on the left, our prior swing higher as well. Of course, the risk reward might not look as good coming back into that level there, but definitely a nice little level, which could be to manage your trade, could be a TP or whatever you're looking to do basically. But you don't necessarily have to push it all the way up to the high there for the maximum risk reward, which of course does look good on paper, but you have to be reasonable, especially with the time frames you're entering. If you're entering in the 15-minute, no point really trying to push your trade all the way up there. You know, take your profit at the right places according to the time frames you are trading. But from a swing perspective, that does look like a good target back at 1.73. So that's the analysis going into next week for pound CAD. Okay, so next up we have pound yen. So pound yen, another yen pair looking strong, not as strong as dollar yen or CAD yen, but definitely seeing some nice momentum. And again, I'm still very bullish on pound yen as well. Like I was speaking about last week, we have seen some retracement, some downside, but haven't been keen to sell pound yen because number one, it's very corrective on this down move, and number two, the higher time frames are still very bullish. So although we are seeing some bearish structure, or have been seeing some bearish structure, I'm not too sure how far we're going to last or how far we're going to go, because the higher time frames could snap in at any point, especially when they look as bullish as we're seeing now. Very impressive swings on the daily, weekly, and the monthly, clearing out some major levels. And again, it's we're a long way away from hitting some key levels again. For pound yen, we're kind of in the middle of nowhere a little bit. So pound yen still very bullish. I'm still looking at a push back to the highs, especially with the price action we're getting now as well. So the highs are trading around 184. We're starting to get some slight higher lows, market failing to break through this support level here at 180. So I'm looking at going to next week is another pullback, possibly another higher low somewhere, retest some consolidation over here, and possibly the next high low around 180.500 for push back to the highs at 184. So very bullish from pound yen. Not looking at sells at all. I would only look at sells if we start breaking through this structure here, because this could be an impulse, kind of bear flag impulse. So if that happens, then yes, sells on the retest of that, taking advantage of that counter trend move. That's something I could follow, but for me, the sells right now are still definitely too premature. We don't really have that much bearish momentum. Like I said, the move to the downside was quite corrective, so again, it's not really a move that I want to follow. And right now we're starting to see some buys step back in, some strong bullish momentum as well with the higher lows too. So buys do look good. There's a lot of confidence behind it. Let's see if we can get pulled back deep into this area. Again, risk reward looks pretty good, and targets no brainer back into 184 for next week for pound yen. Okay, so over to gold. So gold's still bullish on this one. We're seeing some nice retracement coming into an area of confluence here. So I'm actually looking to see if actually gold can hold this area going into next week. We're trading at that level right now. Saw a nice wick through it just before the close of the week. So if you can maintain this on Monday, I'm actually looking at some buys early on for gold for a push back the resistance here at 1985. And I'm also looking at a push back down into 1928, 1930, which is back down to these lows here, which was the original place I was looking to buy coming into this week. I did say we're bullish on gold, looking for some longs, and this was my area of interest, but obviously we never got that. Slight retracement at the start of the week, then we kicked off bullish again, but there is a possibility of a bigger retracement. We do have these higher lows if we connect the dots here as well. So I'm looking to see potentially, if this level fails, a bigger move to the downside, and then maybe the bigger swing to the upside. So again, for gold, if I do zoom out, I'm looking at a next high low forming like we did over here, and that bigger move back to the highs there. So that's still the trajectory for gold. That's still what I'm looking at on the daily time frame, taking that into the 4H, and we do have some good confluence down here. But again, gold's been pretty bullish, and we may just hold into this level and start flying off. It's a good level as well, solid level of resistance, broke through with good momentum. Let's see if we can hold it on that retest. So two really good areas to look to buy from for gold. Not really too bothered about which one. I would say I prefer this level because it's slightly deeper, and then obviously the risk will be better as well. But I still like both of those levels, so I will keep an eye on both of them. And again, targets, again, for the first trade, I will be looking further than this high. That probably will be my first TP to manage the trade, stop loss to break even, and take some partials. But I'll probably be looking at targeting this area here. Solid level of support, which we broke through with great momentum. Never got the retest, so we do have a good chance of coming back there to retest that level, just around 2K. And again, 2K is a big psychological level as well, which could attract price. If I get into this trade, I probably will call it a day back at that resistance, but because gold has a lot of potential to continue going, I probably will leave a small amount to trickle as well for some higher time frame targets. But for the trade, I'll probably just call it a day back at the highs here at 1985 if I do take the second trade. So keep an eye out for gold here. Really nice buys from 1962 and also 1930, and a push back to 2K eventually. Okay, so on to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's still stuck on consolidation. So there's not really much to say about Bitcoin. The analysis for this one is still the same as last week and the week before that. Still stuck in consolidation, waiting for the break to the upside or to the downside to really get things going and look for some trading opportunities. We've got the high of the range around 31,500. We've got the low of the range around 29,500. And between it, the market is fluctuating. Like I said, if you're looking to trade within the range, buy low, sell high. There will be some opportunities here, but again, that's not really what I'm looking for. I'm waiting for the market to break out, see some momentum, and then follow that momentum in the direction it's moving in. On the weekly chart, we're still rejecting this higher time frame support and resistance there as well. So we're still waiting for the market to break out of this. If it is going to break to the upside, we're looking at 35k as the next level. And if we're going to break to the downside, we're looking for us to come right back to where we came from just before that big move to the upside there. So we've got clear targets above and below us. Right now, it's waiting for the market to actually break out, and then we're going to follow that momentum in the direction it moves. If it's the downside, we're looking at shorts and break and retest. And if it's the upside, we're looking at the inverse, looking at price to break out, retest the structure, retest the higher the range, and then we'll take our trades from there. But at the moment, still stuck in consolidation, nothing to do unless you are looking to trade the range. So Bitcoin analysis is still the same for the past 2 weeks, and as long as we stay in the consolidation, it will remain the same. So just we need to wait for the breakout, need to be patient. But I do think that there is a good opportunity coming up soon for Bitcoin once we do get the breakout, so I need to stay patient for that. But the analysis is still the same going to next week for Bitcoin. And last but not least, we've got a bonus pair, which is NZD USD. So coming to the week was bullish, looking for another higher low to present itself. Gotten some nice buys around here, as we discussed at the start of the video. However, it did not play out. Did see a nice reaction, never really got going. And unfortunately, the trade ended up in the loss and the market breaking to the downside, breaking through those lows as well. So for NZD USD going forward, I'm actually looking to switch my bias around from bullish to bearish. The market keeps coming back into the same resistance here at 0.635. Failing to break through, and this big climatic move to the upside followed by even a stronger move to the downside. Looks like we just had a big fake out to the upside past these highs. Similar situation to NZD CAD, and I'm expecting us to come back to these lows and probably eventually have that bigger swing to the downside like we discussed on AUD. We're still printing these major lower swing highs, 1 2 3 4 5 6 potentially, and I'm looking at price coming back down to these lows here as well. So the long-term trajectory is still very much south, and for me it looks like NZUSD has just come up, tested the same resistance, respected it very, very well, as you can see with that bearish engulfing on the weekly as well. Expecting to see a drop back down into this support level here going forward. So into next week, I am looking at pullbacks and shorting opportunities. My area of interest is actually the support level here. So as you can see with those wicks there, a few wicks to the downside, market pull back up, broke through. I'm looking to see if we can come back and respect that level and then look for the sales to the downside with 0.60200 being the long-term targets. Again, don't necessarily need to target that level outright. You can look at this support level here, this support level here. That'll be up to you and your risk reward and how far you can take your trades. But to me, NZD is looking like a quality short opportunity back at 0.62200. So this is where I'm looking for my entries. Got great confluence there, stop loss above the zone, and targets back down to that level. Risk reward looks very, very good as well, and we do have a lot of high time frame backing as well. So NZD was bullish coming into the week, but now definitely bearish, only looking for short-term opportunities, and my level of interest is 0.62200 going into next week. So keep an eye out for NZD, definitely going on the watch list as well for next week. So that brings us to the end of the video, guys. If you have found it useful, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. Let me know if you do get to the end of the video as well. I know it's a very, very long video, but if you do get to the end, taking all the analysis for all these different pairs, please do let me know. I am very interested to find out how many people did. But guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Have a fantastic, fantastic week. I'll catch you all in the next one.